This is the Courier 13 podcast with Warner Andrews, a weekly think tank of in-depth conversations among rising filmmakers. My goal with this podcast is to showcase the innovative talent and ideas that Hollywood hasn't discovered yet. Okay, we are going. Well, thank you for being here, Tom. How you doing?
Hey man, I'm doing great. It's a nice kind of snowy day here in Cranston, Rhode Island, and I'm looking forward to talking movies with you.
I gotta say, your house looks really cool.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Yeah, this is actually I kind of just it's a kind of a new decorating period. I got some boxes and crap laying around everything. I'm a big collector of things.
Okay.
So I'm always in a state of like organizing, and with pandemic, like I've been buying a lot of crap on eBay. So like, every week there's like mailer bags there's crap everywhere, man. But thank you.
What do you collect? Is it like, I'm sure it's movies. I'm sure you collect Blu-rays.
No, I mean I collect actually a few things, mainly trading cards, like sports cards, non-sports cards, like all kind of cards. I collect pro wrestling memorabilia, action figures, things like that. And I collect a lot of like vintage action figures and comic books, and I'm a geek, man. Like,
that's dope though. Like that's really dope though. I actually, now that I think about it, I saw on your story, on your Instagram story, like a Hulk Hogan, like it would look like a limited edition.
Very possible. Yeah, I got a couple of very rare Hogans. Yeah, it's you got to get into something, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, and when you're a filmmaker, you're always with film all the time. I suppose it's nice to have something else. Like you're also like, I'm really, you're really into something else.
Well, you know what it is, man. I tell people this a lot. It comes down to I really like to be surrounded by things that make me feel creative and that like kind of get me excited and almost like make you feel like a kid again. Like when I'm surrounded by action figures and comic books, like I can kind of harken back to, the days when I just was like liking things without really analyzing them and just kind of like enjoying them.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
No, that's really profound. Like to make yourself feel like a kid always. And that gets you in that state of creativity. No, that's great.
It works well when you're writing. It doesn't always work with friendships, relationships, things like that. But for creative purposes, it's great.
Oh, I'm sure, man. You're in Providence, Rhode Island right now?
Yeah, I live in Cranston, which is the town, like it's a little suburb of Providence.
Okay.
But yeah, it's right near Providence, and it's a little estate. But we make a lot of movies here, which is kind of cool. For film people might be interested in Rhode Island because it's so damn small that you can maneuver really easily within the borders, and there's a lot of different looks in terms of locations that you can utilize, because you could be filming on a beach and literally drive 15 minutes and be in the middle of a downtown city type location. So, and then drive another 15 minutes and be in the middle of a cornfield. You look like you're in Iowa. So It's got a lot of diverse locations to offer.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to ask you. Growing up in Rhode Island, because that's not a place you initially think of growing up and then becoming engrossed in movies and film production. What was it like growing up in Rhode Island? And like, how did you get into filmmaking as a kid? Was it like you watched several movies that really inspired you? Was it acting, directing, writing that got you? Because you're a triple threat in that sense.
Well, I don't know. I'm probably less threatening in some of those areas, but I appreciate that. Growing up in Rhode Island definitely gives you a nice sense of, everyday Americana, if that makes sense. Like my town was very much like, every other slice of America that you kind of grow up in. Just, any town USA, you hear that kind of thrown around. a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, Cranston's very much like that. You know, my high school was kind of like out of any John Hughes movie. You know, it's just very like kind of just, you know, not run of the mill in a negative sense, run of the mill and just like everyday ordinary people. And what that did was it kind of like made me want to get a little creative and get outside of that world a little bit. And when I started watching movies, you know, it kind of opened my mind a little bit and expanded what could be done beyond these tiny borders. And then I'm sure you know you're probably a fan of their movies, but like, you know, the Farley brothers are from Rhode Island. So in the
Right.
mid 90s, I think it was like, you know, when I was a kid, one of the first movies that I can really remember seeing in the theater that wasn't like a little kid's movie was Dumb and Dumber. You know, I saw that in the theater when I was probably literally 9 or 10. I probably wasn't even old enough to be watching that movie. But I remember like finding out, my dad told me like, hey, these guys are from Rhode Island. And it was at that very young age where I was like, no shit, like people from my state can make a movie. You can do that. And I'm not going to try and make some corny story and say like that night I got a book on filmmaking and I
Yeah.
made
Right.
movies. But it was inspiring from an early age to know that like, oh shit, there's people from my state that have done this before. So, you know, being kind of open to the idea that you could do this, and then getting into high school, not a strong student, didn't really, you know, it just wasn't really engaged by much until I found this filmmaking course, you know, and really just took it because I thought it would be like an easy credit kind of a deal. And sure enough, I really fell in love with it and fell in love with the, you know, the concept of telling a story with a camera. You know, that's, you know, paint. I was always kind of into drawing pictures. I was always loved to,
Uh-huh.
you know, art was always a thing as a little kid. I could just sit there and draw for hours. And I kind of learned that making films is really just drawing with your, but your camera is your pen now. And okay, we're going to draw pictures, but everything goes through this thing. So once I kind of figured that out, I was like, oh, I love this. This is all I want to do. And then,
Yeah.
you know, like any other kid, you realize like, oh, there's like a career path for this. Okay. And it just slowly developed. And next thing you knew it, I was kind of just writing and doing everything else and just trying to get my stories out to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting that you when you talk about drawing because I didn't really know how to use a camera until like late high school, early college, but I drew a lot as a kid. I would take drawing lessons as well. And I think and I know many, you know, fellow film students that I know, many other filmmakers I know do that. I mean, do you think it's just like, you know, that's like the you know, most filmmakers have a precursor creative outlet that they utilize before they, you know, because you need materials and you need like technology in order to make a film. You can't just buy your humanly faculties, create a
No,
movie.
no, but I think that, you know, I'm not going to say that every filmmaker can draw well because it doesn't
Well, I
necessarily,
can't.
you know,
So
yeah, like I'm not that great either. You know,
yeah.
sometimes, you know, we do the best we can, but all that matters is that you're putting a vision from your mind and you're transcribing it onto paper so that other people can see it. You know, even if it's stick figures, we hear that all the time. Oh, just draw stick figures, but it's true. Like, you know, when I'm working with other filmmakers on set, like I just did these reshoots for a film called Kellie. It's a documentary, which maybe we'll talk a little bit about. But we shot these, you know, reenactments. And that was the movie that I really focused more than anything on storyboards because we had been coming off of pandemic, you know, and when I'm sure you've been experiencing this, you find yourself doing a lot of different things that you're not used to during pandemic because you get a lot of time on your hands. And so one of those things that I was doing was drawing a lot of the storyboards, you know, so it wasn't just like, I wouldn't just draw one picture. I would draw like every shot in the movie, like every
Hmm.
single cut. So it was very nice for me on set to be like, hey, you know, to tell my DP, like, hey, man, this is the next shot. Boom, this is it. And
Yeah.
granted, it's not photorealism here, but it was enough for him to say, okay, the actor's here, the couch is here. I'm going to put my lights here and here and here. And let's put the camera here. So your drawing's very, very, very important. It's crucial, I would say, because at some point, a filmmaker is going to have to explain their vision to someone else. And I'm not talking about the guy you're pitching it to at the meeting. I'm not
Hmm.
talking about some executive. I'm talking about the fucking DP, the gaffer, the people that you literally are in the trenches with. Like
All right.
you're like fellow, compadres in battle. You got to like explain to them your vision, because you don't want to leave it in anybody's hands. And I don't mean that like to sound like, well, that, it is your vision. Like, you don't want to leave anything to the imagination where like, well, you were kind of vague about what you wanted in that shot, and now we have something different. And the reason why you don't want that, and I've made this mistake before, that's why I'm saying it, is because there are plenty of times when I, early on, when I maybe wasn't as specific as I should have been about what I wanted in the shot or where I wanted the camera position. And then you get there and, like maybe you're talking with actors for a little while, maybe you're approving some wardrobe, and then you go back and you check on the camera, and now it's like, oh man, we just moved this jib and it's in completely the wrong fucking spot. And it's all your fault because you weren't specific enough. So now they have to break down the jib, they need to move it. And that might take a half an hour, that might take an hour. Time is money. It's very, very expensive. Every minute you waste is literally thousands of dollars on set, every minute. So it's like when you blew like, oh man, we just blew 30 minutes having to move that jib because you weren't articulating your vision well enough. So if you have a nice drawing of it and you say, hey man, here it is. And it's very simple. It cuts a lot of the bullshit out, it cuts a lot of the, like, oh, I thought you meant that. It's like, what do you mean you thought you meant? Here's the picture,
Yeah, you're right. I mean, well, then that's a great lesson, because you're right. It is. I mean, you as a director, if you are a director, you are responsible for telling everybody, the gaffer, like to the minute collaborator that's with you. You have to tell them everything. Do you always? Because storyboards are really effective, like you said, in that way, to have that. Do you always use storyboards, or do some scenes you just kind of go off the cuff and you're just kind of like, okay, I want the camera here. I want it to feel like this.
There's a great quote, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's something along the lines of like, a battle plan is only effective up until first contact with the enemy, like basically meaning like you're going to have the best plan in the world going into things. And you're just going to meet certain things that come in your way, and you're going to have to adjust, and you're going to have to figure it out on the fly. And that's always going to happen every time on a movie set. So there's almost never a situation where your shot, your movie is going to look exactly like the storyboard, because something's going to get in the way, whether it's an actor decides that, well, he or she wants to do it a little differently, and you got to collaborate and you got to compromise, or perhaps, well, the light's not there, or the sun isn't in the spot that we want, or I don't have the lens for that. There's a multitude of things that can get in the way of it being exactly how you planned. So you got to be a little malleable. Otherwise, you'll get inside your head and you'll start freaking out because it's not exactly how you want it. You got to learn how to adjust. But that said, there's nothing like having a plan, and you cut out all the thinking. So early on, I didn't storyboard as much, and it was a mistake because there was a lot of time spent on set trying to figure out my next shot, and that's bullshit. That's amateur bullshit. Like anytime you're on set and you're like, what am I gonna do next? I think I'm gonna take a little walk and get creative. It's like, that's fucking bullshit. You should know exactly what you want to do, and if you don't know exactly what you want to do, you can't waste time like that being creative. You know what I mean? That's what pre-production's for. And again, you're always going to be able to like be creative on the fly, but you got to have a plan. So that was like, I always try to like look back at the younger me and get aggressive with myself. And like, if I could slap myself around a little bit, it would be like, come on, God damn it. Like, this is so easy if you just plan everything out ahead of time, rather than worrying about things that you can't control as much. But that's that's part of learning, how to do anything,
Yeah. What was I guess I'm getting specific here, but I'm just interested in knowing what has been in your, so far career of making movies. What has been, and specifically as a director, what has been your hardest scene to do, or what maybe scene or moment or movie gave you the most problems, and how did you go about it?
You know, it's funny. It's like every movie really does present itself with a new set of problems, and as you develop, they become more advanced. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an idea. Like, my first movie was probably one of my more difficult movies. I made the foolish mistake of trying to be the star of the movie.
Hmm.
I was an actor. I was writing it. I was directing it. Although I didn't technically get credit for it, I was doing a lot of the producing work in the sense that I was hiring a lot of the people. I was bringing on a lot of friends, asking for a lot of favors. So, think of yourself like a piece of a pie. There's only so many pieces in the pie. And every time it's like one piece goes to acting, one piece goes to directing, one piece goes to writing, one piece goes to producing. You got only a few fucking pieces left of your pie to actually like make the movie.
Hmm.
I ran out of pie, God damn it. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where
Yeah.
I learned that, like, okay, let me just worry about, directing the film. I never need to act in a movie again that I'm in. I don't need to do all this other stuff. Directing is enough. So I kind of learned early on, like, don't try to do all these things when you don't need to. And of course, with the limitations of a budget, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not one that likes to lean on, well, we didn't have a big budget, because you can do amazing things with little budgets. You really can. But
Yeah.
it's tough. I mean, let's face it, for a low budget movie, you're going to get, no offense, but you're going to get the college kid, or the kid who's, fresh out of college, who's just looking to get their first job on a movie. They're going to work their ass off. They're going to work hard. They might be great, but they're not going to be the union, guy or girl, man or woman who's been working on movies for 15 years, like,
Right.
and when you do a bigger movie with a bigger budget, you get to work with union artists, and are you kidding me? So I mean, like, the idea of, like, on a movie like Vault, I got to work with union people, and these are people who've just been doing this for 10, 20, some of them 30 years. And they were teaching me stuff. It was amazing to be able to be like, hey guys, I'd really like to do this in my next shot. And I'd explain what I wanted to do. And they're just like, oh, you bring in a Cardellini and you just put it here. Like, they just know exactly what to do because they've done it 100 times before.
Right.
So, like, but where that gets harder, and I'm trying to make a big roundabout point,
Yeah.
sometimes on the bigger movies, the game moves faster. It's a faster speed of the game, meaning those people that have been working in the movies for 20 years, they're going to ask you certain questions, and you better come correct, because if you don't have the answers and if you don't know what you want, you're going to lose the respect of your crew, because they're not going to really think that you know what the fuck you're doing. You know what I mean? It's like, if these people who are like, real pros are asking you certain specific questions, and you're kind of like, I don't know. Like, I was thinking, like, maybe like some red colors would be cool. Like, if you
Red
don't
colors would
really
be cool.
know,
Yeah.
if you don't really know what you want, they're gonna be like, oh God, this person doesn't,
Oh, Jesus.
they don't know what they're doing, So it's like, as you go on to bigger movies, you just get, it's mo money, mo problems kind of a thing. But it's it's definitely true. Like, every movie you're gonna run into stuff. You just gotta learn to adjust.
Well, yeah. How? Because now that this got me thinking, remind me, how much was the budget for Vault?
Vault was around a couple $1,000,000, two,
Yeah,
3 million.
and I mean, that was the movie that I really discovered you on Amazon Prime. I watched that, and that is I mean, it's a very well shot, very well made movie. And again, you're right. It's not. I mean, for many budgets, that's a very small budget, so you don't need a lot to make something good.
Thank you. Yeah, and people never know all the little ins and outs and the nuances of budgeting for a film, but there's like so many little things that go into it. Just like, um, it's just, before you even put a dollar on the screen, and these are all good things. I'm not complaining, but you got to pay, union health and welfare and pensions, and these people are doing this for a living. So it's like, there's a lot of dollars that you got to pay that never even end up on the screen. So
Right.
yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, that 2 or 3 million bucks, man, that goes like that. And it's one of those things where I've like used this reference a lot. Like, if you were in the park and you look down on a bench and you found a gym bag full of 2 million bucks, you'd be rich. It'd be a ton of fucking money.
Right.
Um, if you were to take that same gym bag and go try to make a movie with it, you'd see, like, it gets inhaled. It gets quickly inhaled to the point where you're like, wait, oh, we don't have enough money for 2 cameras on every day. I have to pick and choose which days I have 2 cameras on. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it goes fast.
Yeah, when you have $2 million, that's a lot of money. But if you go to financiers and say, "Hey, I want to make this movie. Okay, how much you got? I have 2 million." They'd laugh at you. Like they, like they.
No, it's just that, look, it's just, it puts you in a box, you know, there's only certain things you can do with that. But hey, like you said, man, you can do a lot with that. And, um, you know, I never look a gift horse in the mouth. So like, I was fortunate to have the budget that I had. And it was really cool working with, obviously, you know, the cast that we had was unbelievable. And did us a lot of favors to come in, you know, and work on this movie. They really cared about the script, you know, Chaz Palminteri, Don Johnson, Theo Rossi, Clive Standen, um, Samira Wiley, you know,
Well, yeah,
it
you
was a
you
great.
had you had a great cast, and now I mean, what I'd really like to know is how did that, how, because you wrote the screenplay and you directed that film,
I co-wrote it with B. Dolan, who I
right?
also wrote. I don't know if you've seen it, but you should check out Almost Mercy if you liked Ball. Um,
Yes, yes, I
but
did check that out.
oh,
Very
cool,
good.
cool.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, so I co-wrote that with B. Dolan. And you know, the script got out there, and Theo Rossi was actually the first guy to jump on. Chad Verdi produced the movie. Chad has a great relationship with talent, great relationship with a lot of casting people in the business. So Chad was able to get the movie in Theo's hands, and Theo loved it and wanted to play Deuce right away. And Chad and Theo had made a movie in the past together. And a lot of times when you get that first piece of casting locked in, it's huge. I mean, it really is, like, that can be the spark that lights the flame. And it's one of those things where Theo was on board, that got us a little traction, and then we were able to, you know, just from there, you know, Clive Standen came in, and then a little piece of casting like Burt Young came in, and you start just putting it together, and it really is a momentum kind of a thing, meaning, um, yeah, I think actors, it's like anything else. It's like, you know, you might not be the first one to jump in the pool, but once you see a couple of other people in the pool, you might say, all right, well, maybe it might be nice in the pool. You know, maybe
Yeah.
water must be nice if all these people are in it. Like, let me jump in. So it kind of becomes that pool, we'll call it the swimming pool effect, where it's like, yeah, once a couple people are in there having fun, splashing around, all right, I'll go for a swim too. And next thing you know it, we had a damn good cast, and Chad was able to put that together quite nicely. Also, Nick Koskoff, producer on that movie. Emma Tillinger Koskoff was an executive producer. Um, so, you know, the captains, or the generals, if you will, were very strong on that movie.
Would you say that, would you say that the reason that the film got made was because of the casting that you were able to get coming along? Like, was that what got the movie financed
No,
and got people on board?
no, the movie was going to get made no matter what. You know, that's a, again, you know, that's a Chad Verdi thing. That's a Verdi Productions thing. You know, Chad sets out to make a project. He gets it done. If you look at his track record, it's pretty remarkable in about a 10-year span, all the movies that he's produced. So, you know, I remember the day, you know, we were sitting at the bar having a little business meeting,
Uh-huh.
and we were excited because, you know, we were like trying to figure out what's next, you know, like what's the next movie that we make. And we're both Italian American guys from Rhode Island, and when you're from Rhode Island and you're Italian American, there's a lot of folklore and history of organized crime, to the point where these stories of these gangsters, for lack of a better word, have been told for years and years and years, like, you know, almost like campfire stories of gangsters.
Yeah.
Uh, so both Chad and I had been familiar with the bonded vault story, the robbery of this famed gangster hideout vault. And you know, it almost happened like sometimes in life, you know, you don't have a plan and it just happens, and it's a really great moment. You always remember those moments. But I remember we were just sitting there waiting for our food to come, like having a drink, and we're like, what are we gonna do next? And I was like, man, I was like, "Ah, the bonded vault's always been a thing." Chad always wanted to make a movie about Raymond Petriarca, who's the gangster who, he was, you know, the crime boss. It was basically, you know, may or may not have been behind the whole thing. Um,
Right.
so it was like he wanted to make a movie about Raymond. I wanted to make a movie about the bonded vault. they kind of ran hand in hand. It just
Right.
came together. And I remember to this day, he was like, "Do you want to make that movie next?" And I was like, "I want to make that movie next." We're like, "Let's make that movie next." And like, we were all jacked up and, fired up to make that movie. And, B. Dolan and I were cranking on the script. So the energy was there. Like, we knew that
Yeah.
this would be a great story and a story worth telling. From there, it just came down to momentum. Like I said, like, what pieces can we put together, you know?
So once you guys just decided that and you came to that consensus, what was the writing process like? Was it easy? Was it just fun? Like, and I guess I'm kind of getting into like your actual like what your own writing process
Well,
is.
it's funny. All processes are different a little bit, and every writer's a little different. And anytime you have a co-writing situation, it's a little different.
Yeah.
B. Dolan and I were not the kind of guys to sit next to each other and roll up our sleeves and wear like a little visor and suspenders and cigars and like be typing all day together. Like, we didn't operate like that. I have an office here called The Porch. It's kind of like where I do all my business. I've been writing all my screenplays on the porch for a while now. It's like my little secret annex. So, B. Dolan would come to the porch. We'd hang out for a little while. We'd discuss some concepts. We'd discuss some kind of beats. And then B would go off and he'd crank out a draft and he would send not necessarily a whole draft. Sometimes we'd go like act by act and he'd send me an act and I'd take it and I'd do some changes. I'd type up a couple things and send it back to him, almost like a chess by mail, playing chess by mail. And eventually I took his draft, polished it up a little bit, and we'd sent it off to, the various producing team involved. And again, Chad has a great relationship with distributors. So we were able to get the script in the hands of like the distributor early on.
Mm.
So they basically were like this, you know what I mean? They were like, they did give us some notes. We had some notes. It didn't, I'm not going to say that like we sent our draft in and they were like, "We love it." They gave us a set of notes. They actually kind of passed on the first script. But it was like a pass with a set of notes, sort of like, "Hey, we don't want this right now, but if you did this, this, and this, we might want it." So we did this, this, and this. We were able to address the concerns they had. You're probably saying, "Well, what were some of the concerns?" I'd love to know. Maybe you are.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. That's all
I'll tell you. Yeah,
right.
I'll tell you. The main concern was um, the whole movie had a voiceover, and they didn't want a voiceover. It was
Really?
almost like, yeah, it was interesting. The distributor was like, "Yeah, we would love to." They just really were like, "We would love to see this movie without a voiceover." And B. Dolan and I loved the voiceover. It was kind of like that was part of like the Casino. We love Scorsese movies, obviously,
Yeah.
like
Voice
Goodfellas, Casino.
voiceovers are weird, man, because I mean, I've wanted to put voiceovers in the script, and you never know because sometimes putting a voiceover is great and
It
it
can be
just works so
terrific.
well. Yeah, and then sometimes it just doesn't, and it comes off as cliche.
Well, you know what it is? We had a lot of good luck with the voiceover on Almost Mercy, and when we thought it was a really
Right.
funny way to like set up irony and kind of be like, well, it'd be fun if like she's saying one thing and then we're seeing something completely different. Like, I always love that kind of shit.
Yeah.
But I get it from their point of view. It's like, yeah, you're kind of cheating a little bit. That's kind of like, it's almost like you're telling the audience without showing the audience in a way. I get that. Listen, I don't totally agree with that. I think that if done right, there's nothing like a great voiceover. And you go back through the history of cinema. Some of your favorite movies probably have quite a bit of voiceover in them.
Hmm.
So, filmmakers out there listening to this, don't hear this. Don't hear what I'm saying and be like, "Oh, now I can't put a voiceover in my movie." Fuck that.
Right.
Don't let anyone tell you how to write your script. But then if they say, "Hey, we're willing to pick this up if you get rid of the
Right.
voice,"
If you get rid of this, we will take this movie.
throw it
Get
out.
rid of it. Yeah.
Burn,
Throw it away.
douse it in gasoline and light it on fire. You don't need it. But yeah, that was it, man. Once we made a couple changes, Lionsgate liked the script. And there you go. Like, once you know that you have a deal in place, basically you've got a verbal commitment from a distributor that says, "Hey, make this movie with these types of actors within this budget and we'll give you X." Basically, that's kind of, in short, how it works. There's a
Mhm.
formula to it like any other business. You're off to the races and you're kind of just matching names with the characters that you're going to hear this term a lot in the movie business that mean something. You know what I mean? Actors that have value, you know.
Hmm.
And you hate to do that. You hate to play
Right.
that game because it's sad because like you're dealing with human beings and you hate to say like, well, this person's worth more than this person.
Right.
But it's like the Kelly Blue Book, with cars. It really is. It's amazing. Like these distributors have figured out algorithms where, oh, foreign sales, John Smith is worth X in China, or, Susan Williams is, I'm making up random people, but like,
Right.
they know what you're worth, and not just foreign as a whole. They know for the most part within give or take maybe 10-20%, they kind of already know like what each actor is gonna get in any particular foreign territory. And as you
And
can
what they're going to
imagine,
bring to the movie.
yeah,
Like,
there's like literally like a monetary number. And I don't want to be telling industry secrets, but you can imagine like, a certain type of a movie star might be, some stars are worth more in certain countries. And, oh, they like this movie in Germany because this actor's huge there, or whatever it may be. There's a number of different scenarios, but um, that's part of the whole game. You're taking these sort of values determined by a distributor based on the last 2 3 years of figures that have come in based off of films that those actors have been in. I mean, I'm horrible with numbers. I'm kind of an
mhm.
idiot when it comes to math,
Yeah.
but even I can see how they do that. It's not that crazy. I mean, you look at the actors, you look at the movies they've been in, and you look at how they've performed over the last couple of years in various countries, you know?
Yeah. I mean, well, that's, I mean, I feel like that really is like an open secret because
Yeah, of course.
so many, I mean, for say for, an up and coming director like yourself or like anyone watching this, there is this pressure to get convince an actor or actress that's gonna rake in money so that a distributor or somebody would become advantageous to their work if the script alone isn't gonna sell them.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. I don't want all of this facts and figures to get in the way of the overall chief importance.
Right.
This is all with, you need to still have a really good script.
Oh
You know what
yeah,
I mean?
you
Like, this is
can't.
all, yeah, this isn't just like,
Yeah.
slap this actor with this thing and just
Right.
have them reciting the phone book and it'll be worth money. I mean, yes, there's some cases where that's true, where like the companies really don't give a shit and they're just like, a horror movie with this person's worth this.
Well,
But
we've all seen movies where that seemed to have been the case, where it's
of
like, oh,
course,
they just like took that person, threw it in the script, and just
yeah, and they were like, oh, this will be worth something. But no, I mean, like, look, if you really want to do well and you want to treat this like a career and not just a cash grab, you got to write a good script still. But yeah, that's it, man. Once we had those actors attached, once we had the script tightened up to the liking of the distribution company, we were off to the races, and just in prep mode.
so once you finalized that script and got going, what was production involved like? Because that was, you were working with more experienced people. Was it like your biggest budget, I assume,
Oh
up
yeah,
until that point?
not only was it my biggest budget, but it was something like, and I figured out the exact number, but it was something like, you know, 12 times bigger than anything I had ever done. It was some incredible number in terms
Hmm.
of like incredible multiplication factor. So the first, I would say like, the word adjustment comes to mind because at first I was just adjusting to like the different tools in the toolbox, for lack of a better word. Like I was used to kind of having to do a lot of things, cheating it a little bit and kind of doing everything like the guerrilla filmmaking way.
Yeah.
Whereas now I could actually do things the legitimate way, for lack of a better word. Like, we didn't need to steal a shot in the street anymore. We could lock the street down. We could own, as they say, the terms own the street.
Hmm.
We could, this street's shut down. There are no cars coming by. We don't have to worry about getting hit by a car today. or anything like that,
That's
you
nice.
know.
That feels very nice.
With a
I
cop. Yeah,
sure.
there's a cop on the corner, and
Uh-huh.
they're working for us, you know what I mean? Like, they're making sure that this place is safe. So it's kinda cool to have all that stuff, and you do have to adapt, but, you know, that was a pleasure, man. I mean, I remember, like, I was literally like a kid in a candy store on the first day that the grip truck showed up, because I was used to my grip trucks being like some kid's van where, you know, some kid's mom actually, I'm sorry. I was used to the grip truck being like someone's mom's minivan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, you
Eh,
gotta do that
yeah,
though.
of course. Uh, and now it's like there was a fucking 18 wheeler, you know, like a massive, you know, Teamster driven grip truck in front of the building. And I remember that first day, and I was like, that's the grip truck. And they were like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
They're
the
like,
grip
obvious.
truck. And I was
What
like,
did you think was gonna roll by?
it's sick. I was like, it's huge. They were like, well, this is actually like one of our smaller ones. And I was like, it's pretty sick. It was just funny. Like, they probably thought I was such a goofball because I was just like geeking out to like the most seemingly simple things. You know, like, guys, we got coolers with waters here. You know what I mean? They got crafty. But like, you know, just little things, man. Like, you know, adapting to all that stuff. But it's just it was fun. And I will say this though, it's also nice to go back a little bit, you know, and make smaller movies after you've made a bigger movie. And you know, you got to constantly be kind of like, I think of it like training for, you know, like working out. Like, if you do the same workouts all the time, your body's going to kind of get used to them. You know what I mean? So like, you
Mhm.
got to constantly be like shocking your system and trying different things. And that's
Well,
why.
and
Okay.
that's evolution. I mean that's you evolving to the next thing.
Indeed.
How did you work with your actors on that film? And how do you approach working with actors? Especially like actors like, I don't know. I'd feel a little intimidated to work with some of the actors that were on Vault.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Well, let me start by saying this. You know, you say, how do you approach actors? There is no one way how to approach every actor because every actor is different. You know, I can only compare it to like, you know, I'm not a coach, but it's almost like I've heard coaches, and I'm a big sports fan. You hear coaches say like, well, you got to coach every player a little differently because every player is a different person. And it's kind of the same with actors, you know, like there are some actors that have a different process than others. For example, I've had some actors that will literally take me aside and be like, hey, man, if you have a note, like take me aside and like, you know, whisper it to me. Like, I don't like that, you know, yelling out in front of everybody stuff kind of thing. I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
sure. Appreciate that. And then I've had other actors just say, hey man, if you got a note, just shout it out. Just don't even cut the camera. Like Chaz Palminteri, for example, who I loved working with, was like, Tommy, if you got something to say, just shout it out. Just shout it. Don't even cut the camera. Keep the camera rolling and just tell me what it is and we'll just keep rolling. And I was like, that's awesome. Like, yes, let's do that because Chaz was also a filmmaker. You know, he's a filmmaker. He gets it. He's like, time is money. Let's just keep the camera rolling. Every time you say cut, now we got to stop. Everybody stops what they're doing. Then you got to slate it again. Then, you know, scene 54 alpha, take two. You got to do all that bullshit again. And you just keep it rolling and you just, you know, you can fly it out there. But some actors don't want that. Some actors want a little bit more of a, you know, focused approach.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You know, there's nothing wrong with that either. You know, it's like, it's just different. So I'd say like, you know, the first bit is just kind of feeling them out and just seeing like what kind of actor are they? What approach works with them? Some actors like to prep like crazy, and I love that. You know, like for example, Theo Rossi on Vault. We were having conversations literally 6 months in advance about the script, and he would call me like, yeah, once a week or once every couple days, and we would read together like 3 pages, 4 pages, and he'd be like, all right, so what are we trying to do in this scene? What am I trying, what's my attempting, what, you know, what is this, what is that? And he'd just ask all these questions. And again, I don't say that like he was annoying me. He was trying to get to the bottom of this character. And I love the questions because a lot of times they were questions that I hadn't even really considered. So he would check me a little bit and I'd be like, oh shit, what do I want? What am I trying to say in this scene? You know, so that was a great, like almost like sparring. You know, like he'd throw a couple shots and I'd take them, and then I'd throw a couple shots, and we'd kind of be working the scene out that way. So that was a fun approach. But guess what? That he's like one of the only actors who I've ever worked with like that. You know, there's only a couple that want to put that kind of time in. A lot of them want to keep it fresh. You know, they don't want it to appear as rehearsed. They want it to feel like that's the first time they say it. So that's it, man. I mean, my only advice would just be like, never have one plan of this is how I direct actors. You know, it's like always be willing to adapt to their needs and their wants. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones on camera. You know, a lot of directors like to get really like egotistical about like what they want and how it should be. And it's like, they're the players. You're just the coach. You know what I mean? Like they're the ones that are actually on the field. You know what I mean? And you need to remember that. So like it is very much a collaborative process. So my job is just to make it as easy for them as possible and to get the best possible performance out of them. And a lot of that's just you feel them out a little bit.
Well, and you as an actor yourself, you can obviously sympathize with that deeply, like just what it's like to be an actor and the stress and the vulnerability in that. So I mean, you have to let them go about it the way that they have to go about it. There's no other way.
Yes, but having some acting experience has definitely been a help along the way, because you know you understand where they're coming from, and you understand that you know sometimes when they ask the questions that they ask, they're not asking it because they don't have faith in you or your vision. They're asking those questions because they want to know because it's like, you know, this is going to sound really silly, but it's the truth. Like certain actors have a better side. You know, they just feel more comfortable, you know, performing from like this
No,
side.
that's a
Or from
real
this side.
thing.
So it's
Yeah.
like, you know, when an actor asks you like, hey, what's the camera doing or what's going to happen? You know, like they're only asking you that because they probably want to know like how to feature their better angles because they know their angles so well. That's like part of their profession. So all these questions, you know, if I could give advice to any young director, don't get nervous by these actors when they ask you these questions. They're usually only asking them for their own selfish reasons, and I don't mean that to sound like a jerk. I mean that they're only asking you that because they want to look as great as they can look. They want to do as good of a job as they can, you know, for lack of a better word. And I'll touch upon one of the other thing you asked, which is, do you get nervous around these people? I'd be lying to you if I said no, but what ends up happening is like the second the bell rings, so to speak, that goes away pretty quickly because on any given day when you're directing a film, especially a bigger budget film, a union film, you're getting asked, and I'm not kidding you, you're probably getting asked a dozen questions every 5 minutes. It's this constant barrage of which one do you like? Which way should we go? What lens? What light? What this? What that? And that's part of the job. In the process of answering all those questions and being in the zone and firing on all those cylinders, you don't have time to get nervous. You know what I mean? You really don't. And I know that sounds like bullshit and it sounds like cocky guy talk, but it's true. It's like the game, the speed of the game, I'll use that again, is so fast that like you really don't get hung up on that stuff. And you know, like I think that obviously everyone's gonna have like day one jitters or whatever, but you're so fucking busy when you're directing a movie, you don't have time for that. Like I'm nervous. You know what I mean? Like that's you get rid of that quick.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was doing the short that I filmed last winter. I was obviously nervous like the first week, like the week before we went into it. But then once you were on set, the nerves kind of dissipated. Like it was just because like like you said, and it's true, even for like a smaller film or a film that you're making when you're a student, you don't have the time, especially if you're the director, you just don't have the time to be nervous, which is a blessing because you just don't have to think about it anymore. It's not a thing.
Yeah, you get protected by that.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, it's that
It's a defense mechanism.
it is, I think it's a defense mechanism that all directors use. It's like I'm too
Yeah,
busy to
I'm
think
kind of
about
nervous.
this.
Damn it.
Yeah, can't do it. Can't do it. Well, I mean, you gotta go, but there's just so
I got
many.
another, listen, I got another 10 minutes. Let's do 10 more minutes and I'll
All
tell you
right.
what, I'm having fun chatting with you. If you want, you're more than welcome to have me back in a little stretch of time. We'll talk
Uh,
some.
that would be amazing. Because I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah, it's fun chatting with you, man.
What what are you working on right now?
Okay, so I told you I got a call at around 11. I can push it a few minutes for the sake of podcasting.
Thank you.
But we're doing a movie right now called Kellie, which, bro, I am so excited about this project. This is the one for me, man. Like, and I don't say that lightly. Like, this is the film that I feel like I can really do something with and tell a special story that not only compels people and entertains people, but like may really change the way people look and change people's outlooks and how they feel. And I think it could help a lot of people. It's a movie called Kellie. It tells the story of a transgender boxing promoter named Kellie Maloney, who, when representing as Frank Maloney back in the late 80s, in the 90s, and even parts of the early 2000s, was one of the biggest boxing promoters on the planet, managed the likes of Lennox Lewis, who, if you're not a fight fan, Lennox Lewis was the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, knocked out Mike Tyson, beat Evander Holyfield, one of the greatest fighters of all time, hands down. So Kellie, when she was living as Frank, managed Lennox. And this was a testosterone fueled 1990s boxing world where everyone was a man's man, and the world was very different in the 90s, and how people treated in the perception of LGBTQ people was just very different, and it was really a terrible kind of space at the time. So at the time, Kellie was living as Frank, but dealing with this inner turmoil of wanting to be a woman and this desire to be a woman. But of course, in that space, in that professional boxing world, that was just not a thing. That was just not going to happen at the time. So Kellie suppressed those feelings and tried her best to just, live a traditional quote unquote life, and married a woman, had three beautiful daughters. But then at a certain point just couldn't take it anymore and decided to uh, really become Kellie and live true to herself, and basically left the boxing world for a long time, and kind of hid for a while, eventually became Kellie, and now she's living a very happy lifestyle, and is getting back into boxing all these years later. Hasn't managed boxing in years and years and years, and is now back and now feels confident in who she is. So it's an amazing story. We're making a documentary right now. I'm co-directing that with Rick Lazzies, and Chad Birdie's on as a producer. And this is one of those documentaries that will have some cinematic reenactments as well. But the plan is to make this a feature film, a straight up narrative film, which I'm hoping to be writing very soon. And we hope that in 2022 we'll be filming that. And it's a great story. It's one of those stories that, again, really entertaining, really compelling, and also could help some people out that maybe are struggling with some of those issues.
That's amazing, man. I think that's a really great idea to, because you're making the documentary and then you're gonna make the narrative later. What drew you? Because I mean, I don't know a lot about boxing. Because you're a boxing fan, so you probably knew this for a while. You knew the story for a long time.
Well, it's funny. So we made a film if you're not a big fight fan, this might be good for you to check out, because maybe it could like give you a little background. But there's a movie that I produced with this team called Tough Love. And it's a documentary about Lennox Lewis, who is the fighter that Kellie managed. So about 4 years ago, when we first got a hold of this footage, I'm watching the footage and I'm watching Kellie's interviews, and I'm watching Kellie's story. And I remember like very early on looking to my, my editor at the time and saying like, damn, man, like that's the movie. Like that's the movie right there. Like this is a story. Like, oh my God. And I remember just like while being in the editing room, like while cutting together this Lennox Lewis Tough Love movie, just like being glued to Kellie's footage and her story. And I remember back then just wanting to make that a movie. And it's funny how like sometimes in life, like you really do have to like will things into existence.
I think that's every movie is a miracle.
Yeah, it really is. It's like
Yeah.
it's like a human life. So, little did I know 4 years ago that like years later we'd be making that movie. But in the back of my head, I was always like, I love that story. I love that story. And then sure enough, Rick Lazy's, who I'm co-directing this with, kind of came to Verdi Productions and was like, I think it's time. Pandemic had just hit. And this was back in April of last year. And we were like, well, shit, what are we going to do, man? Like, we don't want to just sit on our hands for, a year. We have all this great fucking footage. I mean, like the nice thing about Kellie and Frank, who Kellie used to represent as, there's tons of footage. I mean, you got fight footage, you've got old VHS footage. They did documentaries on Lennox Lewis. They did, news stories on Lennox Lewis where, Kellie was interviewed. So there's tons of footage. I'm talking like dozens of hours of footage. So, Rick came to us and was basically like, let's make a documentary. And then I kind of like was like, okay, cool. But yeah, wouldn't it be awesome if like this documentary had like some kick-ass cinematic on that, was to put it over. Rick liked that idea a lot. Chad supported it 100%. Then you probably remember like there was a little lull in the pandemic, like around like August, things started to like chill a little bit.
Yeah.
We were able to safely, of course, monitoring everyone, all that stuff, social distance. We were able to shoot those reenactments. I shot them even in a very stylized way because I wanted to. We were during a pandemic, so when you see the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But like, I shot the reenactments as if we were in a memory, like as if they're all memories. So like,
okay.
they don't necessarily have like if we're in a nightclub, you're not going to see like dozens of people in the nightclub. You're going to see like a spotlight and like dance lights and maybe a couple people, but it's all in the mind of the character. It's almost like a theatrical presentation, if that makes sense.
No, I think that's smart because I know you probably didn't initially when you first discovered the story wanted to make it into a documentary. But now with this documentary, you're finding a way to bring your cinematic approach into it.
And try, like we talked about, 20 minutes ago, whatever it was, try something new, learn a new hold, like learn a different move that you can bust out.
Documentary is a whole different game. So yeah, I mean, if you're not used to that, that is a completely new thing.
Yeah, it's a different animal. And I've been watching a lot of documentaries and just soaking it all up. So, so that's it, man. That's basically like how it came about, one thing led to another, and we shot these reenactments. Now we're cutting together the documentary. And now that, we're just about finished in the editing room with that one, now we'll ship that off and we'll try and get ourselves a distribution deal, all while I'm going to be writing the script and prepping to make this movie next year,
Dude, I'm so excited for you. And I'm so excited to see that well, one, the documentary, but I'm also really excited to see that movie that's gonna come out.
I appreciate that, my friend. And who knows, maybe I will send you a top secret private link and you can check it out before it comes out.
Oh wow, that would mean the world to me. That would really be dope. That'd be sick.
Let's make that happen. Let's stay in touch. I would love to do this again.
I'd love to have you on again. This was really fun, man. This was really fun.
Let's do it again. And also, if you're looking for a good documentary to watch, the Night Stalker doc on Netflix.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm gonna write that down to remind myself.
I watched it in one setting.
One sitting. How long was it?
It was like a little less than 4 hours.
Okay. Yeah, I know. No, I get that. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. That's normally not the kind of stuff I watch, but I've been hearing a lot of good things about it.
It's well done, my friend. It's well done. All right, well, let me know when this comes together. and I'll do some promoting on my social media.
Well,
get
this will come out today. I'm gonna do everything I can to get this
Oh,
out
wow.
today.
Oh,
Yeah,
sick. Well, let's take like a selfie, and I'll promote it. Ready?
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna get my little camera out here, and you gotta send me like your Instagram information.
Absolutely.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
Nice. I think I got you in there. Yeah, that's gonna be nice.
Cool
Awesome, man.
beans.
All right, well, listen, shoot me a text. Give me your Instagram info. I'll follow you on there, and then keep me posted on the show, and I'll post it up.
That means the world to me, man. Thank you so much.
All right, Warner. We'll see you soon, brother.
See you later, Tom.
Bye.